Hello Montgomery ISD, and greetings to all you bears and lions. I'm Steve Meeker, and I have the honor of sitting here with our new superintendent, Dr. Heath Morrison. Welcome to Montgomery, Dr. Morrison.
Thank you so much, Dr. Meeker, and it's a pleasure to talk to you again.
Well, I know you've only been here for a few days, but you've had a couple of meet and greets. What's your impressions of Montgomery so far?
You know, it's been amazing since being named lone finalist through every step of the process. I've had the opportunity to reach out. I think I'm up to 118 different phone calls with teachers, parents, administrators, other staff members, community leaders, and many visits to the district and meet and greets. And so here's what I'll say. I would challenge any community across the country and across the great state of Texas to find a community that is more passionate about its public education system, proud of being an A-rated school district, and recognizing that it is great teachers and staff and the administrators in the school that make that happen, and wanting to make sure that those employees, those teachers, administrators, and staff feel valued and don't ever want to be anywhere than Montgomery ISD. So that in and of itself has just been amazing, and very consistent with what people love about the district, and where people do say, hey, there's always room to improve, that's been very consistent as well. And so that's it's been a great number of conversations.
Well, it sounds like we made a good first impression on you. I'm happy about that.
Oh my gosh, there's no doubt.
Tell us a little about your family, and how do they feel about coming to Montgomery?
I'm really blessed. You know, there's my family is everything to me, and married my high school sweetheart.
That's
and
nice.
When people meet her, she's an educator too. She's a nationally board certified English teacher. She currently is a college professor, and I say unabashedly, there are two Morrisons who are educators, and she's by far the more talented. And then the people are like, oh, he's just being humble, and then they meet her, and he's like, hey, he's right. So she's quite amazing. I have two children of my own. My daughter, Samantha, who actually just graduated from college and is going to be applying to law school, and hopefully right here in, near where we're going to be in Montgomery.
Right.
And then my son, Zachary, who is currently going to be a junior in college. And then we have a foster daughter who is a former student. And so it's just blessed. 2 dogs, 2 cats. So we balance everything out on that end too. And everyone's super excited about coming to Montgomery. Matter of fact, I've shared with some of the board members when I was coming back for the second interview, I had my wife with me, and I was like, wow, I was so excited about the possibility. I was like, what if she doesn't love it as much as I did? But she just couldn't stop talking about it on the way back to the airport. And so, you know, we're in the middle of now house hunting and thinking about the transition, but everyone's super excited.
I understand you're going to be going on the walking history tour with Ms. Brenda Bevan.
Can't wait.
The historic part of Montgomery.
Can't wait. Yeah, so when she made that invitation, she's like, I don't know if you'd be interested. I'm like, when, where, let's do it.
Right.
I taught social studies, taught math too because I needed a job, but I taught social studies because I love it.
Right.
And I just can't wait to take that walk and learn more about the history of Montgomery. And again, you know, I probably just get so excited I'll want to go into a classroom and start teaching it.
Just walking through Montgomery with Ms. Bevan, just so you know, it's kind of like walking through Memphis with Elvis. You know, she's very popular
so
and
bring
very well
peanut
known.
butter and banana sandwiches is what you're saying.
Exactly.
All right.
I have a few questions that have come my way, and if you don't mind if I look at my notes. Things that have been on people's mind, I think, in the last time that since you were named as our lone finalist. When I saw the notice about about being named the lone finalist, I looked at the bio that was there, and I got a little curious and did a little Google search.
Oh yeah.
And you know, it was interesting. Some of the things that come up in the Google search about your departure from Charlotte, North Carolina. Now that was 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I know that these resignations, sometimes there's a lot of different things involved in them, and you may not be able to talk about some of them, but what can you tell us about what happened there? Oh,
sure. You know, I would say first thing is there's lots of reasons why people today question the media and the ability and accuracy of news stories. Especially on social media, so I have lived that very personally. You know, here's what I would say is, you know, I came to Charlotte-Mecklenburg as superintendent, large district, and worked very collaboratively with the board, our employees, the community. we did some amazing things. We increased student achievement exponentially, increased graduation rates for all students exponentially, created new programs, new schools, and actually passed our last bond at 88%, which was the highest in the history of the district. So lots of community support. The challenge in that district was there were 2 people who reported to the board. I was one, and one other employee. In the great state of Texas, by statute and law, only the superintendent reports to the board. And this individual and I had a series of disagreements, one over action that I thought would impact our trying to get teachers raises. And so we had some disagreements. He raised some issues, and I created a process for me to address those issues. And ultimately, I had to make a decision. And since I didn't think that there was a fair way to address the process that he articulated, I made a decision to leave. And I thought that was the right thing for the school district. I thought it was the right thing for my family. And so as we negotiated, both sides agreed to confidentiality and non-disparagement, and I've honored that. I'm never going to speak anything but extremely positively about my time in Charlotte. This individual did not honor that, so everything you read has been decisively one-sided, and my voice is not in that. What I will say is that when I got hired into the private sector, they researched it thoroughly, found no issues, and actually promoted me 3 times in a short period of time. The search firms that have asked me to serve as superintendent have researched everything and said there's nothing there. And this board did extensive work and came back and said, this is ridiculous. Let's move forward with this guy, and I'm really honored about that. So, you know, it's disappointing, but it's unfortunately sometimes the life of a big city superintendent, which is why I'm so happy to be in a place like Montgomery ISD.
Right. I spoke to some of the board members, and they said they did some pretty extensive questioning.
I think they talked to my kindergarten teacher. I mean, they talked to everybody, and you know, and I'm glad they did.
One of the things that caught my eye when I was looking at your bio, now maybe it was just the way the bio was presented in the press release, but it looked like you had gone to places, had great success, but didn't stay very long and moved on. And so maybe you could talk, that's a concern to me because of something I saw in a different district, not in Montgomery, many years ago. But also we are really interested in consistency here. We really want you to be here for quite a long time to see the plans through.
Me too.
And so tell us a little bit about your experience and about some of the moves. You can go back to your teaching experience and how you got the different places and the decisions to move along.
Yeah, appreciate it. You know, I think you have a resume, but I think you also have a leadership story.
Right.
And I've just been really fortunate. I've tried to describe my career. It's like been this magic carpet ride. And I've been so fortunate and so lucky to have had these amazing opportunities. And the last actual job I said, I want that job, and applied for it from start to finish, was my first teaching job. Since then, I've been asked to consider lots of different opportunities, and like many of us, you say yes to some and no to others. So I have stayed in Maryland for 19 years as a teacher, principal of a middle school, principal of a high school, and an area superintendent. I went to Reno, Nevada as superintendent for 3 years and would have stayed there a long, long time. Unfortunately, my dad passed away right when we went out there, and tried to bring my mom out my 3rd year to live with us, and she has a number of different health issues and could not live in a mountainous environment. So that's what prompted our move to North Carolina, where we've been for 8 years, both in the public sector as superintendent and in the private sector. So, you know, it's been lots of different jobs, but what the nice thing is with this particular move is, and I was very, very focused, and I was very clear with the different search firms about what I was looking for.
Right.
And we're just at a stage, my wife and I, where we want to put down some really strong roots, and so I was saying no to a lot of things, but when the opportunity with Montgomery came along, I was like, that's exactly where we want to be. So I could not be more thrilled.
Right. We'll get into that just a little bit more.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've heard people concerns is that you have experience in Maryland and Nevada and North Carolina.
You said Nevada, right? That's great. See,
Nevada, right.
People say Nevada.
I'm a geography teacher. So.
Yeah, there you go.
But not, at least apparently, not much experience in Texas. Now, our motto in Texas is friendship. That's where the friendship state, and I'm looking at that or not. But pretty friendly. We're a little suspicious of outsiders. And so what do you know about Texas in general, but more specifically about Texas school law in Texas government. That's going to be what's really important here.
Absolutely. So I think there's a saying, you're either in Texas or on your way.
Right.
So I've been really I've had a number of different opportunities come to Texas in my career, and they just have not been the right time at the right place. This was. I have a lot of close colleagues that are superintendents and leaders across Texas, and so that's extremely beneficial. In my last job in the private sector, spent a lot of time in Texas,
yeah.
So I have probably been in the legislature in Texas as much as many superintendents, maybe more so than in Texas right now. The board in the interview, I'll tell you, they kind of set aside their questions, and they asked almost a similar question. They're like, we're going to really pepper you about TEKS and the STAR system and,
right.
and budget. And I think talking to them about the different standards, the level of specificity, everything that you could possibly care to know about the STAR system and the way we do accountability, the ratings, how that ties into district ratings, the budget, anything from Chapter 41 to House Bill 3. And I think after about 15 minutes, they were like, wow, he probably knows as much about Texas as anyone
right.
else we've interviewed. And I think most of them were current superintendents in the state. So you never know everything you want to know, but I think I've got a good start. And, the big thing is I love to learn. And so I'm going to spend a lot of time not assuming I know it, but make sure I do know it. But I think I've got a good head start.
It occurs to me that it seems like you really want to be here because
Yes.
you knew you were going to have to answer some of these difficult questions
Yeah.
As they came out. This is a highly educated community, and
Absolutely.
People do look into backgrounds. So, speaking of that, now you've been in the private sector for a few years. You mentioned.
Yeah.
You might talk a little bit of what you were doing there, but also what really drives you though to come back in to be a school superintendent again?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. It was interesting when you're superintendent and you work with the business community, and I just had a chance this last week to meet with our chamber members here in Montgomery, so I can't wait to start partnering with them. But as you start to interact with business leaders, almost inevitably you hear someone say, Mr. Superintendent, you ought to run your school district more like a business. And I always thought, well, I appreciate that, but I've run a balanced budget, and
right.
I think we use our resources efficiently, and I think the metrics look good. But so I actually had the opportunity to go onto the private sector, and when that opportunity came, it was kind of a leap of faith. And so what was interesting to me was I was very upfront when I was getting recruited for the position. I said, listen, I'm probably going to stay a year or two, then I want to go back and to be a superintendent
right.
again. And they were like, well, we'll see how that works out. And
that was McGraw-Hill, right?
McGraw-Hill Education, yeah. So I went running government affairs, and then quickly got asked to be chief sales officer, which I promise you is probably the least qualified I've ever been for a job in my life, but I did okay. And then I was asked to serve as the president of the company, of the K-12 division, and learned an incredible amount and really enjoyed it. But we started going through a merger, and they asked me to stay on, but it was a good time to sit there and say, wow, I've been here longer than I thought I was going to be. And, did I want to stay in the private sector, or did I still want to come back into the public sector?
Right.
And I had all these ideas that were flowing in my head, and I got home to tell my wife I wanted to get back into public sector and the superintendency, and I had this long narration. I started, and she just stopped, and she said, you want to go back and serve? And I'm like, yes, I do. She goes, all right. And so, I'm really blessed because, she's very supportive, and it's led me to here. So I'm excited.
That's good. You've been in some pretty large school districts.
Yeah.
I know in Maryland and in Reno, Nevada, and in Charlotte, North Carolina, quite a bit larger than Montgomery. So what makes our situation in Montgomery appeal to you?
Yeah. It's interesting. So when I told the different search firms nationally and especially in Texas that I was wanting to come back, immediately they started talking to me about the bigger school districts and the more urban districts. And I appreciate that. I believe absolutely leadership is service. And so it's an honor to serve anywhere.
Right.
But I said that, I was really looking for a different experience. And, one of the books that is very meaningful to me is a book called Good to Great. And so, can I come into a smaller district, really focus on deeper relationships, collaboration at a whole different level than you do at a larger district, and really take a very, very good school district and make it a great school district, a consistently great school district, or as I've been charged by this board, the premier school district in Texas. And so I shared what I was looking for and kept on getting recruited for bigger districts, but when I got the call from this search firm about Montgomery, I'm like, I'm going to do my homework, and the more homework I did, the more excited I got. And so it's exactly what I'm looking for. And I got a call from one of the bigger, larger district superintendents right after I was named lone finalist, and they're like, Heath, you know, Montgomery, it's a good school district, but you know, it's kind of small, and why? And I'm like, you know, two things. I said, you're going to be meeting with all of your teachers or your principals soon to talk about your COVID plan. He said, oh yeah, I'm going to get them all in a big auditorium and we're going to have this conversation. I said, no, you're going to have an audience. You're going to talk, they're going to listen, and then you're going to go out and tell the media and everybody you collaborate with principals. I'm going to be able to sit down with all 10 of my principals and senior staff.
This table, you can sit down with them all.
Socially distancing, right? And we're going to collaboratively come up with a plan. I said, that's exciting. And then, you know, I've got 617 teachers in Montgomery ISD. Within a year, maybe two, if I haven't met every single one and start to know them by name and face, I'm not working as hard as I intend to work. And he's like, that's a good answer. I'm like, that's my answer. So that's why I'm so excited about Montgomery ISD.
So then we can expect to see you at the ball games and choir concerts and band concerts and the like?
I already told Mr. Eaton in our first conversation, I'm going to live vicariously through he and our new principal at Montgomery High School. And yes, I love to be at those activities, athletics, the fine arts, anywhere where we have students. I'm having a meeting very soon with the two leaders of our student council. So if there's an activity, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be in classrooms a lot, and just really treasure these opportunities.
Right. I had a question that came from one of my co-teachers over at Montgomery Junior High. You mentioned that your path went from teacher to assistant principal to principal, and then on into further administration. Well, mine did too, but I came back to being a teacher.
See, you're smarter than I am.
I thought it was more fun, actually, and I was a lousy administrator, but beyond that. The question is that for many teachers that are wanting to go into administration, do you have some ideas about how, or maybe a plan to set up some kind of an academy or a training for giving them the opportunity to have that experience and exposure?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in a grow your own program. Matter of fact, I wrote my dissertation on it to get my doctorate, and created in a smaller school district where I taught, Charles County, Maryland, helped create our first Principal Academy, which was a training program for teachers to move on and become administrators. What I believe, though, and what I really would love to work collaboratively across Montgomery ISD with our employees, is how do we not just have growth opportunities to go from a teacher to administrator, but a teacher to other leadership positions. My wife, as I said, is a much more talented educator than I am, and like you, she's far too smart to ever want to be an administrator like I was. So, but she still wants professional growth. So how can we create a career lattice program that allows some people to go into administration, other people to have other leadership opportunities and still stay teaching, and really have professional growth as a part of our DNA here at Montgomery ISD.
Right.
So that's what I'm really looking forward to being a part of. And to me, you know, you always look within before you look without. So
that was my next question, about hiring from within.
So you always want to try to cultivate your great talent. You want to keep your great talent, and you know, sometimes there is a need to step out. And you know, I think the private industry will say it's a 75-25% ratio. You hire 75% from within, but 25% keeps your ideas fresh and new experiences. But you know, look, I've already had conversations with our HR department. We will always look within first, and then we'll see what might be out. And the goal is always to hire the very best, but I think we can find that right here within the district.
Great. This is my 41st year as an educator.
No way.
And I started here in Montgomery in 1980, over behind Lincoln Elementary in the building they call the Annex now. And I've seen a lot of changes. We had 1,300 kids in the whole district at that time, and now we're over 9,000, I believe.
9,137.
Okay, you know the number.
Yeah.
I've got, you know, quite a bit of experience, but I don't have any experience teaching during a pandemic other than what came onto us at the end of this past year.
Yeah.
And so I'd like for you to talk a little bit about your plans for how we can go into this new school year that's fraught with so much unknown.
And it's going to continue to be unknown. And I think I had an opportunity to go through a leadership training program one time with a 3-star general. And he had a saying that I really thought, okay, that's interesting, but battle plans don't survive first contact with the enemy. And I think for all school districts across the country, and I've already started collaborating with our regional superintendents here in the Montgomery area, everyone's coming up with the best plans, and then conditions are changing, or guidance or edicts from TEA are changing, or the governor's coming out with a new ordinance, and the next thing you know, we have to change the plan. And so right now we've got two very strong plans, and this will be, what we're trying to look at moving forward. The goal is, first of all, with both plans, the safety of our students and staff is priority. That is absolutely the starting point, and everything else resonates from that goal, keeping students and staff safe and getting them as quickly as we can back into the traditional mode of school, right. Brick and mortar. We have one plan right now which has a date. It has different ways that we're approaching instruction. You have to offer both in-person instruction and digital virtual instruction. And so that's one plan that's moving forward. And we're working collaboratively with senior staff and principals, and we're starting to get more teacher input and staff input and parent input into that plan. Right. The other plan is, what if we have to delay the start of school so everybody has to start on virtual? And what if that time period extends past just several weeks? And right. So plan B is, how do we start school virtually? How do we do that perhaps better than it was done as all schools back in the spring?
Right. We did the best we could, but it was
yeah, everyone did. And so, but now we know we have to be a little bit more prepared, and right. So we're working on that. And then quite frankly, we got a plan C, which is, what if when we get in and we start back and most of our kids are back in person and we're having a traditionally great school year, and then all of a sudden we have to close schools again. So what do we do with that plan C if we have to close schools? Right. So and every one of those plans has like multiple tentacles that you have to start scenario planning. But everything, again, starts off with, does that keep our students and staff safe? And then if not, then how do we do something different? And I think Thurgood Marshall once said, you do the best you can with what you have. But what we will do is put out our plans, get as much input as possible. There will be big asterisks that say subject to change. Right. And then as soon as we know we have to change, we'll make sure that our employees and our community know that.
It's fluid for sure, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And people tend to poo-poo this, and I've always marveled at the first day of school. I mean, whether it's a large school district or a small school district, getting hundreds or thousands of kids in multiple buildings with teachers coming in, teachers coming out, parents coming in, parents coming out, car lines, buses. It's like a mini logistical challenge, and yet we do it so well across the country. And now this year you have COVID, it's just going to complicate it, but we will rise to the challenge.
The first day of school sets the tone so much.
Oh, yeah, it does. This year it just might have to set the tone virtually, but we're seeing on that.
You mentioned something earlier I wanted to come back to, and I think this touches the hearts of teachers. We've all had students that were in challenging situations, and our heart really went out to them. We did what we could to help them, and sometimes we felt like, I'd just like to take them home with me. Well, you and your wife actually did that, right? Can you talk a little bit about you mentioned you have a foster daughter. Yeah,
she's been a joy. She was my student when I was still teaching, and just developed a wonderful relationship with her mother. And her mother had an illness and passed, but prior to her passing, we had conversations about what would happen. And she was in a school that was just really great for her, and she was thriving.
Right.
And the only other options would have been for her to go out of state. Into a situation that would have been as good for her. So we did something that we thought was really going to help enrich her life, but it really enriched our life. She has just been a joy. She's just been a great part of our family. She taught me how to change my daughter's diaper, and I went through the dating rituals that prepared me for what that was going to be like. And so I just she's been awesome, and she's just been a joy to have in our lives, and we're very fortunate and blessed.
And she is, how old now is she?
She'd be upset if I tell you exact, but she's actually, the interesting thing is she's not that much younger than my wife and I. So,
I see. So it's been a while back then.
Yeah, it's been a little while, but she's amazing. She lives in Florida, but it's actually interesting. We were having a conversation, and she just got promoted, and there is the company she works for has a branch that's actually pretty close to the Woodlands area, and so she's like, I could look at there, and we're like, whatever we need to do to encourage you to do that. So I'm going to try to bring the whole gang together.
Dr. Morrison, as a teacher, I just want to welcome you to come into my classroom anytime, and I
will be there.
All teachers are anxious for you to come and see the good work that we do with kids, and we like to show them off. We see them, but it's always nice for other people can come and see them as well. Is there something that you'd like to talk about that we haven't brought up so far?
I think what I just want to say is I've tried to come into this district listening and learning, and that's just not how I'm coming in for the first 30, 60, 90 days. That's just what I really believe is I am a better leader as I'm a better listener. and not just listening to our employees, but to really collaborate at a deep level to get input. You know, I always had an idea that when I went to the private sector and started to get training, but there's a concept called psychological safety. And do people really feel comfortable sharing their ideas, saying, hey, I think we could do it better, or, you know, if we change plans and directions here. And so many employees, especially those that are quote unquote on the front lines, have these great ideas and they don't have voice to that, or they don't feel like they have voice. So I can't wait to really start that deeper collaboration, listening, and then actually where the vision becomes the shared vision, and we all feel like, hey, we had our voices in the direction of our school district. And again, this board has been very clear. They've tasked me with 3 things. Number 1, we are going to have a balanced budget, and we can do that. Number 2, we are going to be on the pathway to have much better compensation so that our great employees don't feel like they have to go anywhere else but to stay right in Montgomery ISD, and that's critically important. And then the third area is, how are we going to go from being a premier school district in the state of Texas to the premier district in the state of Texas. Now, what does that mean? How do we get there? I've got some thoughts, but I'll do it much better when I'm listening to our employees and getting their voice. So can't wait.
Well, that sounds great. Well, thank you, Dr. Morrison, for taking time to chat with us, and thank you all for joining us. Go Bears, go Lions, and everybody be safe.